Revelations 13 and 16 and 17. He causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, on their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Kohalo Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem HaKakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, the elders, the elder bishops, great millstone, Tawada, for your diligency through these years. Shalom to the 144,000 men that are pushing this word at this very hour. Shalom to the innumerable 1/3 that consists of men, women, and children that have been blessed with the mark of the Thawa, pursuant to Ezekiel 9 and 4, which is exhibit from the judgment we see here approaching. All right, and those who are ordained to believe on the names of Yahweh, Wa Yahweh Shah, in all truth and sincerity. I'm the brother Yazra from the GMS Dallas camp, coming back at you with another quick hit lesson, Abarata Zah, meaning Lord willing, it's edifying unto those who are meant to receive it. All right, the name of this lesson I believe I'm going to go with is The Future is in Your, quote unquote, hands. The future is in your hands. All right, now what I did, I took the liberty to put together a couple of videos as I was at work here today, the last couple of days I should say, and just on my watch as we were ordained to do, just looking out into the things that are happening, all the legislations that are being passed, particularly going into the digital ID, all right, which we know is the precursor, the pathway and doorway to the MOTB, all right, the MOTB, all right, it's here. It is here, all right. Everything's laid out before us, just as prophesied, just as the Lord said it would be, all right. So I just want to touch up on a couple of these videos I put together here. One of the videos, actually, I did a lesson on a year or so ago, but it's really speaking now, right? And I brought this out and pull a few precepts. It'll be edifying unto those who are meant to receive it. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? All right, this first video I believe is with Glenn Beck. All right, and he talks about the digital ID mandates. And there's one particular talking point that's on everybody's mouth today. All right, and let's see what he's talking about here. Give me 1 sec.
Speaking of the mark of the beast, let me tell you what I heard from Keith Starmer on Friday that made my blood run a little cold. He is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and here's what he said at the Reform Conference. Listen to this.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID.
He causeth all, small and great, rich and poor, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, that no man may buy or sell, save he that have the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. We just read it. It's happening.
It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict, climate change, issues that aren't just intolerable for those of us who care about inequality and injustice wherever it's found in the world, but which have clear consequences for our own citizens.
Okay, see, and that's what these devils do, all right? They speak devil talk, all right? You know, their words are enchantments, all right? And they use these big, long words, and they have, great eloquent elders that, you know, are able to speak well. All right. And pretty much what they do is they trip you up. And if you're not paying attention, all right, you'll be snared and you'll be trapped. You have to read between the lines. And ultimately, you have to walk in the spirit to listen to what these people are saying, because they speak in code, all right, on the left-hand side, okay? So he's trying to link all these things together. Now, there's a reason, and like I said, there's a video that I did, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it here shortly, why, you know, they're coming out with this. Ultimately, there's something that they had already prescribed, right, to get to this point in order to issue out or make this mandate. All right, we'll get into it.
Wow, that is fantastic. So let me just tell you what he's saying here. First of all, it's a new free service from the government, so you know it's free. It's me, of course. But he's saying that they have a problem in Europe. See if you can relate to this at all. They have a problem in England with people coming across, you know, the water and just invading the country, and then they're taking all the jobs from, you know, decent Brits, and they haven't stopped them. You know, they're welcoming them in. They're not turning them away. They're not sending them back home or anything. But to solve the problem instead, they're just going to have everybody have a digital identity. That way, you'll know if they're a British citizen or not. Oh. You know, there's an easier way to solve this. I don't know. No, you just stop the illegal immigration.
Right.
You would send people back. You do that. You do that. No. Now, I want you to understand, and I don't know if I have time to get into this today, but this is the way progressivism works.
Right, because what this is gradualism, as I said. All right. Matter of fact, let me grab this precept before we go to this other video. I'm just going to pause that. This is Psalms 55:21. His words in his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. For his words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. You see that? Because ultimately what? All right, what was he speaking about? All right, you know, he was speaking about, you know, the protection of the citizens. All right, he was speaking peace and safety to the people. All right, and all of these vain concerns, so-called concerns that he had, all right, and that the people had, but ultimately there is a motive behind it all. All right, so though it may sound good to the unlearned or the reprobate ear, all right, but those of us in the spirit know exactly what this man is talking about. All right, going back to his enchantments, all right, and how these people speak. All right, because there's one motive in mind, all right, and it is war. These people are warlocks, okay? All right, but they have to be brought onto you in a gradual way, all right? That Hegelian dialect, all right, it has to be brought in such a way that, you know, well, they create a problem, all right, and then they'll come in with a pre-prescribed solution, all ready to go. All right, so I'm going to pull this video here real quick, because keep in mind what he just talked about, all right? He talked about, you know, the immigration. All right, this is the reason why, because yes, he's right. Anyone can see there's a simpler way. There's a lot easier way to be able to solve that immigration issue. First, you know, don't allow them in the first place if that's the case. All right, but there are much easier ways. I was watching a video with Elder Apostle Tahar earlier today, and he was going into this same subject, and he was talking about how, you know, you can have you know, federal officers go to these different jobs, all right, and basically demand for an employee list, all right, and their credentials. All right, how many employees do you have on job? We have such and such many. All right, let me see their credentials. All right, and whoever doesn't have them, all right, you come with me. There are multiple ways to be able to alleviate this so-called situation, because it's not a situation. All right, this was done. This was controlled. Okay, and I don't know how many of you remember this, but this is a video that I did last year. All right, and now we're seeing why. All right, so let's just grab this real quick. I don't know if you are, any of you familiar with this. It's called the Replacement Migration. All right, it's the Replacement Migration Act. Let's just get into it. I'm only going to play a couple of minutes of it. This is the reason.
This is orchestrated, folks. The globalists are using migration as a tool to disrupt national stability and dilute the cultural and political power of sovereign nations. It's all about control. By flooding countries with mass migration, they destabilize local economies, strain social services, and ultimately weaken the political voice of the native population. This is classic divide and conquer on a global scale. We're seeing the fallout in real time. In the United States, the Biden administration is allowing wave after wave of migrants to enter the country illegally,
Right.
and the mainstream media doesn't even bat an eye. Why? Because it's part of a much larger agenda, the same one outlined in the 2000 UN report.
Right. You see? So this was an agenda. All right. And you can Google this. This was a bill that was passed. All right. The Replacement Migration Act. And this was last year. All right. This was a lesson that I did on it. All right. And it was speaking basically about the MOTB. So now that you see all of these nations, they're uproaring and they're talking about immigration. So this is the reason why they let those floodgates open. All right. And let all of those immigrants here. All right. Because they had to have a reason, a causation, all right, to implement this. All right. This is the start, the pathway to the MOTB. Okay, so I tell you what, it's a good idea. Why don't we open the borders, let all these immigrants come in here? All right, we'll do job replacement. All right, because we can hire them. All right, and we can pay them, you know, $10, $15 on the hour, you know, for a job that you normally have to pay a lot more for. And these people are going to work their ass off. All right, so we'll be able to keep our overhead low. All right, so it makes sense. And on top of that, all right, the main reason or main causation is because once we get these people in here, okay, now we can come out with a rule, all right, or a law or legislation, pass it. All right, we need to know who all is here because this is a problem. Okay, this is a problem that you caused, you see, or out of chaos, okay? All right, create chaos and come in with a pre-prescribed order already. All right, this is all planned to happen. Why? Because they want to implement the MOTB, but it has to start gradually, like this is. So it's starting with what? The digital ID. Understand there are 3 pillars of the NWO, okay? The first one being the digital ID, the second one being the CBDC, all right, which is digital programmable currency. And the third is ESG, which is environmental surveillance governance. And we see Trump already did that with the Golden Dome. All of the infrastructure is here and it's in play right now as we speak. You see? So when you have an understanding of what's going on here, these 3 steps are pretty much the infrastructure that's going to be embedded into the MOTB. But it's in pieces, okay, if you can receive it. All right, let's go get a little bit more of this video here. Let's go about.
Look at how this affects us directly. When you bring in this level of migration, it puts immense strain on public resources.
Right.
Schools are overwhelmed, healthcare systems buckle, crime rates surge, and housing becomes scarce. Meanwhile, the globalists sit back and watch as the middle class is eroded, replaced with a population that's more dependent on government handouts and less likely to push back against authoritarian policies. But it's not just about economics or social strain. There's a deeper, more sinister agenda here. By displacing native populations, the globalists aim to erase national identities. They want a borderless world where
Right.
people are easier to control, where cultural differences are flattened, and where we all fit into their technocratic vision.
Right, and that's what this is all about. All right, breaking down all the borders. All right, bringing in that NWO, that one world rule, one world government. All right, but it has to be done strategically, okay, in order for this to make sense. All right, as a matter of fact, let me grab another precept here, if I may. Let's take a look here. That's not the precept I'm looking for. Give me 1 second here. It's late, Slakia. I run around all morning, all day. Give me 1 second. I think this is it here. No. Matter of fact, let me do this. Yeah, here it is right here. This is Isaiah 29:15. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us and who knoweth us? Right, because again, this was a legislation that was done in secret. Okay, where all of these heads, these powers, all right, they pretty much commune together, all right, and they come up with these legislations, these draconian laws, all right, and they pass them in secret. All right, when things were going on, when there's always a reason, a compliance behind it. When you look at 9/11, what was the purpose of that? Ultimately, it was the Patriot Act. All right, to push the Patriot Act forward. All right, well, there was no privacy and surveillance that was done. Okay, all right, so even when you look at this situation with Captain Kirk, all right, we know ultimately what we're seeing here with this ID, digital ID, is linked to what happened to him. Okay, so there's always a cause and effect. There's always a reason behind what this man is doing. All right, but you have to again have the spiritual eyes to be able to see. Let's go back to this video.
This isn't some wild conspiracy theory.
Right.
It's happening, and the UN Replacement Migration Report laid out the playbook decades ago. And if you think this is limited to the US and Europe, think again. The elites are pushing the same agenda in countries across the globe.
Right. So you see all of these, this was when they had all of these immigrants, all right, going to not only here in America, but this is all around the globe, in Europe, in Germany, and Africa, all of these different places. Why? Because this is all a part of a global system that's being set up right here, technocracy. Okay? But it has to be done strategically.
Africa, Asia, South America,
See?
they're all being set up as pawns in this global chess game. The migrant crisis is just one front in a much larger war for control over populations.
That's all it is. All right? At the end of the day, it's total control. As I said, and this infrastructure will be embedded. All right, this whole system will be embedded into the MOTB. All right, and this is exclusionary. All right, pretty much you'll be ostracized. You'll be shut out if you refuse. All right, any part of this. All right, ultimately you'll be put to death. All right, because what they're not going to do, they're not going to risk any persons of persuasion or influence. All right, you will be eliminated. All right, if you're going to speak against the status quo. All right. Matter of fact, I think there's one more here. Let's grab.
So these are all done in steps,
Right.
right? Let's get a little bit more of this video.
What's the end game here? Look around you. This mass immigration is about engineering chaos. Governments and elites know that such drastic demographic shifts lead to tension, social fragmentation, and a loss of national cohesion.
Right. So this is the reason why, all right, this digital ID, all right, is here. All right. This was planned and executed over a year ago. All right. The replacement migration. All right. They use that to bring about this.
And in the chaos, they expand their power. This is when they implement surveillance systems, digital IDs, and global governance structures.
What did he say? Surveillance system and digital IDs. Mind you, like I said, this was over a year ago. Let's get it again.
This is when they implement surveillance systems, digital IDs, and global governance structures. It's all
Surveillance system, digital IDs. We're here. We're here. You see? So this whole so-called migrants crisis, this was planned. Okay, in order to funnel you down that tunnel. He causeth all. All right, Revelations 13:16. All right, that is the topic of of the era right now, of this era right now. All right. Abaratazah is going to end. We're gonna be ending this era here real soon once Yahushua returns. All right. But this is the topic of the hour right now, the MOTB. All right. So again, this is why it's very important as a watchman to keep watching to see the things that are going on so you can connect the dots. All right. Because without the word of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua out here, where the scripture says, where there's no vision, the people perish. Pretty much where there's no prophets out here that are set up to give you the visions, the tokens, the signs, and to let you know what's going to happen, people die. All right, you're not going to have a chance in hell. So now, again, now you're seeing why the digital ID is being implemented, and they're connecting it to immigration. When you look here at this video, this was something that was passed over a year ago, where that whole influx. And I know a lot of you people, if you Google it or you think back, you remember that influx of migrants that were coming here and all over the world. It's for this reason. All right. So they're going all out just to get to that MOTB. Okay.
All connected, folks. The crisis creates the need for solutions, and those solutions are always about controlling us more.
Right.
The current migrant crisis isn't a humanitarian emergency. It's a calculated move. Governments like the US and nations across Europe are being flooded with migrants in a move that's been telegraphed by the UN for years.
See? Let's get this.
The Replacement Migration Report is the roadmap, and what we're witnessing now is the execution of that plan. This is why we see globalist organizations like the World Economic Forum pushing for open borders, digital tracking, and increased surveillance.
See?
They're paving the way for global control,
We're here.
where national sovereignty is eroded, and we are all just data points in a technocratic system. And this crisis isn't just a byproduct of economic or social policies. It's by design. The
Right.
UN's Replacement Migration Report laid out the blueprint for how mass migration could be used to reshape populations and cement global control. Today, as borders crumble and migrants flood into nations by the millions, the true nature of this plan is becoming more obvious. The elites are creating the problem, and their solution is more control over every aspect of our lives.
Total control. You see? Total and absolute control. All right? So the scripture says the wicked go astray. What's lucky? Let me grab it. I don't want to butcher it. See, because there are certain correct characteristics that you will know who will be the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan here on the earth. All right, which nation? The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray soon as they be born, speaking lies, roughly paraphrasing. All right, that's the precept. All right, so this was a lie. All right, it was a flat out lie. All right, these things were caused to happen. All right, to pass legislation. Okay, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna bring this now. What is that? Daniel 8. All right, now this, as we always have to qualify it, all right, because Yahweh Shah, scriptures let it be known that history repeats itself, right? This was talking about in the days of Antiochus Epiphanes, but it's also liking to today. It's the very same thing. It says, and through his policy, he shall call his craft to prosper. As a matter of fact, let me see what this says in another book here, if I may. I'm just curious what the NLT says. I think the KJV says it the best. Let's just ride with that. It says, and through his policies, what? His laws, his legislation, also he shall cause craft to prosper. Right, he shall cause his wickedness, his deception to prosper in his hand. Right, and he shall magnify himself in his heart. Right, become very, very proud. All right, you saw that when just the other day when you saw the secretary of the Department of War, what's his name, Hegseth. All right, he was talking cash money, proud as hell, right? When he was speaking to those admirals and generals and lieutenants, all right, because they're gearing up for World War III, all right? So it says, he shall magnify himself in his heart la'ah, meaning his mind. And here's the point, and by peace shall destroy many. You see, so this is talking about that peace and safety. All right, if you just get this digital ID, we're going to be able to do this. We're going to get into it a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the incentives, things that are going to come along with this. All right, but it's ultimately going to destroy you. It's going to destroy many. Okay, and it says, and he shall also stand up against the prince of princesses and shall be broken without hand, right? Because ultimately that's Yahweh Shah, right? Because these people are gearing up to fight the Lord on his return on World War III. And this is what Hegseth, all right, the Secretary of the Department of War was speaking about just the other day. All right, he's pretty much riling up the nations, starting here with Esau, with the Edomites here in America. All right, Babylon the Great. All right, getting them fired up because they're getting ready to go over there and they're getting ready to be toast. Little do they know, thus saith the Lord. Okay, so again, but just to reiterate, you know, this is what the Bible talks about, peace and safety. When he shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction, because this is going to seem to be like a good thing. All right, it's going to be presented in a way that's going to be enticing. You're going to have celebrities, you know, athletes, you know, all kind of big names that are going to, you know, really help push this thing. All right, it's going to come with really cool gadgets and incentives, and people are going to jump on board. They're going to eat it up. All right, and it's going to seem to be something that's safe. All right, something that they can depend on, but ultimately it's going to destroy you. Okay? All right, let's go back to this this video here.
They create the idea.
Yep.
And then they cause the problem.
There you go.
That they can go back and say, we need to do this.
See? So that's what they did. We just talked about that, all right, with the Migration Replacement Act. All right, they created this so-called immigration problem. Why? Because they already had it prescribed on what they were going to do. Okay? This is something that was already written that they already had planned on doing. If you can receive it. Okay, let me see here. Where's that? Looking for something here that I thought I had. I'll just keep going here.
To solve this problem. Okay. So they've caused the problem of illegal immigration.
Right.
They've caused the problem of all of these things happening on their streets. But don't worry, they've already designed the answer, and it's digital identity.
Yep.
Now it was just voted in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And Australia already has it. Okay, so let me just give you an idea of digital identity. This is
right. So again, going back to the video that we just saw, you see all those different countries that they were naming off that all had migration issues. All right, now coincidentally, these same countries that were named off in the video during the migration replacement, now these are the same countries that are now pushing, all right, the digital ID. You see the craft in this man's hand?
Is from the World Economic Forum. This is how they are describing what digital identity will do.
Right.
Okay. It will give the users access. Now just think what's left in your life. It will give you access to insurance, to healthcare treatment, to monitor your health devices. It will monitor your wearables, and it will be for care providers to demonstrate their qualifications.
Right.
So you can look up, you can't do this now. I can't look up a doctor online and see if he's any good. No. I need digital ID to do that. But it'll also track all of my wearables and monitor all my health care and have access to my insurance and everything the doctors are doing for me. That's great. And all of that data goes right into a centralized data bank for the government.
Right. See, because ultimately what this is going to lead to is it's a programmable system, okay, of total control and governance. All right.
It's 12 o'clock.
There'll basically be no unauthorized transactions, all right, that will be made. All right. And it's going to come with a social credit score, right? Because this is something that China's already been rolling out and already doing. So we can see the race for the fourth industrial revolution that's happening. All right. What it's going to ultimately end up in is war. At the end of the day, because everyone's racing for this prize. All right, Esau's racing for this prize rulership on the left-hand side. Why do the heathen rage and imagine a vain thing? This MOTB is a vain thing. These nations thinking that they're going to prolong their rulership of the heathens, it's a vain thing. So as America's trying to catch up with China, okay, because China's already has all this stuff laid out. At the end of the day, it's all going to end up in war. Okay. So, like, as I said, because, you know, they have the social credit scores, all right, they have all their wearables and everything is pretty much connected, all right, it's a web, it's all connected, all right, it's pretty much his techno tyranny in China is pretty much well on its way, all right, and with this social credit score, there's going to be incentives as well as what's called a UBI, Universal Basic Income, all right, and this basic income would be basically is universal basic income would be money that you receive, all right, for you know, from the government for AI platforms, okay, and so forth, and they're going to talk about and touch on it here in a little bit, but this is where we're headed. Okay, let's go ahead and get some more of this.
Now, what else does digital ID do? Well, financial services.
There we go.
You'll need digital ID to open bank accounts, carry out online financial transactions. Food and sustainability. For farmers and consumers, you can verify where the produce is coming from to enhance the value and traceability in supply chains. For travel and mobility, your digital ID will help you book trips. It will help you go through the border control between countries and regions.
See that?
On humanitarian response, it will give you the access to services to demonstrate qualifications to work in a foreign country. E-commerce, you'll need your digital ID to be able to shop, to conduct business transactions, and have access to secure payments.
Right. See, because what it's doing is ultimately it's going into, right, this whole digital ID is pretty much a framework. Okay, and the only thing that's really missing is a digital currency. All right, and that's pretty much what they're setting that up. So as I said, all these things are being done in stages, piece by piece by piece. So as they're setting up the digital ID, you have all these great incentives. The only thing that's really missing, all right, is the digital currency aspect of it. And that's going to be brought out, let's say, you know, a few months after, 6 months or so after, you know, this stuff is fully implemented. Because they're just going, hey, we actually have a system set up right now with the digital currency, and it can just, you know, pretty much it'll link right with digital ID, you know, and you don't have to worry about this, that, so forth, and so on. All right. So they're really clever. All right. Scripture talks about he was the most subtle beast of the field. So they're really clever on how he's bringing this out, and the masses aren't going to be able to. You have your fews here and there, you know, your so-called Bible thumpers and stuff that, you know, have read Revelations 13 and 16, but they don't have the eyes to have ultimately to put all the pieces together, all right, and really see the end game, all right? And that's what the men of the Lord are for, all right? So this is crafty, all right? This is craftiness at its finest, what this man is doing.
On social platforms, your new digital identity will protect you for your social interactions, to access third-party services that rely on social media logins. Your e-government, that will allow you as a citizen to access and use services, to file taxes, to vote, and to collect benefits.
Wow, see? So there's 1,000,001 incentives that are going to come with this, all right? So there's really no justifiable reason, all right, why the average person isn't going to want to jump on this, all right? Once those UBIs come out, I think it's a couple thousand a month, and that's just pretty much, you know, given to you from the government. You know, who's not going to want to jump on that? All right, because as they're squeezing the inhabitants here with high food costs, you know, rent, bills, and everything else. All right, this is going to be that peace and safety. All right, this is going to be that slack here. Move this stuff out of the way. This is going to be the ultimate deception. Okay, that a lot of people are going to fall for. As a matter of fact, I'm pulling one of these last videos here, and this is for my Eldar Reality here. I was watching a video that he did here with algorithms. All right, he pretty much kind of broke it down, you know, because a lot of people are going to come on board to this, as I said, speaking about incentives and things that are going to make it enticing, but the average person to want to pretty much jump on board. all right, and going back to Revelations 13:16, because it's going to cause people, you know, whether through incentives, whether through death, whether through, you know, any means necessary. He's going to funnel you into this system, all right, into this technocracy, all right. So ultimately you'll have no choice. You're going to lean on Yahweh Shem Shai, or you're going to lean on Esau. All right, let's get this a little bit.
Universal basic income is this whole idea that everyone, regardless of who you are or what you have, will receive a certain amount of money every month or every so often, every year.
Right.
This is almost like an extreme version of the benefit system that we have. So currently, the benefit system allows people to be paid for not working because they're incapacitated or they're unable to work.
Mm-hmm.
But universal basic income is a step further than that, where they say, well, let's pay everyone a flat fee to reduce the strain of these other things. They'll make arguments like for increased mental health, for increased creativity.
You see?
The main thing that they're going to use is unemployment and the advent of artificial intelligence taking up a lot of these jobs.
Right.
So what they'll do is they'll say anybody that signs up for this digital ID, a component of that ID is going to be a stipend that you'll receive. And it's going to come from the profits that AI is generating. And these companies that are having a lot more AI will sign up to pay an AI tax or whatever that will be issued out to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so and that's how you'll be able to onboard a lot of these people into these programs, especially women.
And sure, those.
So also, all right, when you look at our financial system that we have today and you look at the U.S. deficit, right, being, what is that, 37 or 38 trillion, all right, this is, when you think about this move, it really makes sense, all right, knowing that this debt bubble is pretty much exploded, all right, you're going to pretty much want to have a lot of people, all right, you're going to want to have a lot of debt obligation, all right, and play. All right, so when it actually does pop, what better way to really move the masses into this new system, all right, by offering all kind of new incentives, all right? If you want a token, if you want to join the tokenized system or ledgers, all right, sign up via biometrics, all right, and offer the masses all kind of cool incentives, all right, as he mentioned, or as we talked about here, all right, with the package, all right, and bam, the masses will pretty much be on board just like that, okay? So as I said, when you think about it, it really all makes sense. All right. This man has pretty much planned this down to the T. All right. As I said, this BRICS card or this digital ID is the framework. All right. To the MOTB, because the only thing that's missing that actually makes it the MOTB is what? It's the digital currency aspect of it. And as I said, that's going to be added here very, very shortly. All right. But we know also along with this, because it's ultimate or total control. Okay, when you look at how this UBI works, it's going to be time sensitive. All right, you're going to have a certain amount of time to be able to spend these tokens or these coupons. Okay, and after a certain amount of time, you're going to be penalized, let's say 10%. All right, you know, every other day or every day or however it works. All right, so there will be no savings in this system. All right, and this is ultimately what it boils down to is fear. All right, because fear, when you really look at it and understand it, it's a great motivator. All right, and this is what this man has used all throughout history. All right, he used fear. All right, when you look at, you know, case in point, and it's going to be really easy to move people into this system, because when you look at, let's say, the credit cards and debit cards, all right, 1 in 3 Americans, all right, experience some kind of scam and fraud. All right, that's roughly about 34%. All right, so you have 62 or 63 million Americans that have had fraudulent charges that have been put on their card each year. All right, so that's roughly about, when you really break it down, it's about 8% involves either lost or stolen cars. So roughly that's about 5 million, I would say, give or take, Americans, all right, that have had fraud linked to their stolen or lost cards. Okay, so what more way to make it convenient where you don't have to carry these physical cards? It's starting off that way now. All right, but as these things start to roll out more and more, all right, it's all about convenience. Okay. All right, and convenience, and so he moves with compliance and he uses fear tactics. Okay, when you look at, what I want to say it's like 333 million people that are Americans that are in the U.S. today. All right, and when you look at the jump shot, let's just say, all right, from 2020 to 2025, I think it's what did I say? It was maybe roughly around 80 or 90% of Americans all got at least one jump shot. Okay, so that's 300 million Americans. All right, that pretty much got the jump shot. Why? Because they were led by fear of losing their jobs, right? Fear of getting sick, fear of all these different things that were going to happen onto them. All right, so these people are pretty much primed and they're ready. Okay, all right. So again, understand that this is the time that we're in right now. All right, I didn't really want to make this lesson too long. We're already about 41 minutes in. But I just really kind of just want to touch on, some specific points pertaining to this digital ID and the road that it's leading to, because the future of us all right, what they plan is in your hand. All right, the hand, the future is in your hands. It's the title of this lesson. All right, Shalak, you gotta excuse me. I'm getting tired as hell. It's been a long day, but yeah, this is where we're at right now. All right. And so as things start to get closer and closer, you're going to see an acceleration, right? Because these people are moving quick. Revelations 12:12 says, the devil is coming down onto you having great wrath, because why? He knoweth that he has a short time. So these people know their time is up, so they're moving quick. All right, so we will see Abaratazah, the implementation, all right, of this MOTB here, hopefully within the first quarter next year. All right, if not sooner, Lord willing. Right? So we're here, man. All right. So Isaiah 33:6 says, knowledge and wisdom will be the stability of thy time, and the strength of salvation is going to keep you stable. All right. Knowing these scriptures. All right. Repenting and coming back onto the Lord if you're an Israelite. So-called Negroes and Latinos and Native Indians. Coming back onto your true power, you may get protection, because this man is rolling out he's taking the gloves off. All right. So I just wanted to point out, when they talk about this digital ID and this mass immigration crisis, this was all planned. All right, as you can plainly see, this was all planned. All right, and they have a much more coming down the pipeline. All right, to really secure that enterprise. All right. So anyway, with that, I play this lesson with edifying. I want to say, call hello Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Kakwadash. Salakia for if I was rambling, trying to get it all off. I got a lot going on in my head, but hey, Shalom, Akim and Akwad.